Right, welcome everybody. We are doing 5 things to stop doing with your job adverts in 2017. Real passion for job adverts in the recruitment market. Let's kick off. So I've got the lovely Steve Barnhurst and I'm Lisa Jones. Steve is joining us from Broadbean. I'll give him the mic in a second. Barclay Jones, then we do 3 significantly amazing things. We do recruitment technology, so we work with business leaders in recruitment businesses, helping them implement all sorts of tech, from CRM to job board posting software to timesheeting, on all the strategy around that. We do social media and digital marketing. So there's some of my clients on the call right now. We're with a blend of recruitment leaders who like coaching and digital marketing, and obviously they're lovely marketing teams who like mentoring because it's a bit lonely and they want to make loads of money for their businesses, and we help them do that. And then we do recruiter success. So if you're a recruiter and you want to use systems or digital marketing more effectively, then we'll train you on how to do that. Over to Steve. So tell us a bit about Broadbean. What do Broadbean do? What are they famous for?
But for those people that aren't familiar with Broadbean, we're in essence the global leader in job advert distribution and candidate sourcing technology. That sounds pretty flash, but what does that actually mean? It basically means that every single month we post 3 million adverts, we source track 10 million responses, and I'll come back to that number in a second, and we're powering in the region of 2.7 to 3 million searches. What does that actually mean? Without context, it's almost worthless. It basically means that around 70% of all of the online advertising in the whole of the UK goes through the Broadbean environment, and that in turn means that we probably have enough data to be able to predict the UK economy 3 months ahead of the Bank of England.
Well, that'll do. All good stuff.
Yeah, so it's not big. It's not big data in the world of big data, but it's a lot. And we're also relatively uniquely placed in the fact that we see both supply and demand. So we see demand in terms of the jobs being advertised and supply in terms of the candidates that are coming back through the system. 10 million applications that I just wanted to come back to, when we looked over the last 3 months, it's running at a run rate of closer to 12 million responses now. So as we're talking about adverts and we're talking about job boards, it's worth noting that despite what people may say and the fact that people use a wealth of social media, and so they should do, you know, the job boards are still doing a very, very good job for people out there and driving a huge amount of traffic to recruitment businesses.
Thank you so much. So obviously it is all about us because we're 8 years old this month, and if you're clients of ours, you'll know that we celebrate birthdays in a big way because we always send little prezzies out and so on. But we had a great birthday this month, and thank you everyone who sent messages through LinkedIn. I think we're at about 245 or something like that now, which is good. So that's lovely. Yay, 8 years, all very exciting. I do feel like an 8-year-old most of the time, and I think that's the best way. Obviously, if you tweet, and we hope that you do, and if you do, can you just put tweet and put your Twitter handle into the chat facility so we can check out who you are and potentially try and engage with you online over the next 45 minutes. It just makes it more exciting. But obviously Barclay_Jones or Lisa Mary Jones if you want to get in touch with me personally. And we've obviously got Broadbean and Mia as well, and they are a very engaging force as well, which is good to see. So what's 2017 all about? Well, flipping heck, what a year. And if you were at the Maras on Wednesday, Simon summed it up quite interestingly. But we've obviously had Brexit or Rexit, or actually what was it? Nobody really knows what it is or what it was or if it still will be. I'm still reading reports on us pulling out of that, but we'll see. And obviously Trump. Oh my flipping God is all I'll say to that. So let's just forget about that for 50 seconds and say, right, let's start posting adverts that deliver some awesome talent instead. Let's make sure that that's what 2017 is all about. And let's not forget that adverts are not just for candidates, and they're certainly not for rabid candidates who apply for everything going, but they are to generate leads, convert clients, get recruiters looking at you. That's not a scary concept because ideally you want to recruit next year. And a lot of my clients want investors, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but certainly within the next 4 years. A lot of recruitment businesses are planning on either expanding through investment or selling through investment. So investor visibility is absolutely critical. And it's really, really easy to write crap job adverts because most recruiters do, and most recruiters stand there, I think, a little bit akin to the penguins in Antarctica, all in a circle with the wind and the howling snow, all looking inwardly going and whispering, don't look round, because if you do, they'll all notice that we write crap adverts. Let's just all pretend that this is the norm. And Stephen and I are here today to say to you, let's break out of the norm and let's make a really, really good job of this. So we're doing a lot about stop at Barclay Jones at the moment because we see almost too much stuff online about what people need to do more of, what they need to buy more, what plugins they need to add to their PC. We see too many recruiters surrounded with tech and not enough process. Steve and I have both been in recruitment for a long time, and I'm sure he'll agree that recruitment in itself is a very simple process which can often be complicated by tech. Do you have any views on that, Steve?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we do a wonderful job of making it very complicated. And I think we also were guilty, and to put my background into context, I did 15 years as a recruiter, frontline on a desk. I spent 2 to 3 years doing training and development of new recruiters coming into the industry, God help them. Some of them apparently have even gone on to be quite successful, who would imagine. And then before coming to Broadbean, I spent around 4 years as COO for a very large organisation in London. And the only reason I mention that is I think it gives me a real empathy for what recruiters have to do at desk level these days, but also what MDs and business owners have to contend with when looking at buying new tech and actually implementing it. And I think as an industry, we're sort of guilty of trying to look for the quick fix.
Yeah.
We think we can change a system and just overnight it's going to make a massive difference. And it just doesn't. It really doesn't. And we see it with our own system here. As I said, this isn't a sales pitch at all, but we see it with our own system where somebody's bought it with all best intentions, and then you go and visit them and you do some on-site reviews with them, and they're just not using it in the way in which it should be used, and they sort of moan about it or complain about it or question its sort of value. So for me, we did a session ourselves recently where we looked at CRMs and how to get the best from them. And I just drew the point that we typically probably spend 80% of our time window shopping, looking at a new CRM or a new piece of tech, getting all the suppliers to come in, and then once we make a decision, we just expect the teams and the recruiters just to get on with it. And I just love us to flip that the other way and spend as much time shopping and invest that into the actual training and the rollout side of things so people actually get to use the tech properly. And I think it's just a really, really big area for us. And
I also want to hear from you guys and gals. What would you actually like to stop doing? And this is in your chat box. This is not a poll. So go to the question area where you typed earlier on where you were dialing in from. I want to understand what you'd like to stop doing next year. If we all had a glass of wine and I said to you, what have you stopped doing this year that you've really, really been delighted with? What would you like to say? So give me an idea of what you'd like to finish doing this year. Spending time with time wasters. Very cynical, but yeah. Stop relying on LinkedIn. Hey, Emma, waving. Working. Someone said drinking. Excuse me, lady. We both know that that's the wrong suggestion and we both know why. Taking on lots of jobs that aren't mine to do. So, yes, the average that we see. You don't need jobs. You don't need jobs. You need jobs. No, you need opportunity.
Just candidates, honestly. You just need good candidates. With good candidates, you can create jobs.
That's what
if I ran a recruitment business these days, I'd take all my guys and girls that were doing client side and just split them, just say, let's just go and build relationships with candidates, get good candidates. If we have good candidates, we can just take them to market and we can create opportunities, certainly in this market, with any client within reason that we would want to. So you don't need jobs.
Absolutely. We've got account management, getting bogged down in other people's problems, stop writing ads that are repetitive, absolutely. Deal with junior HR, non-decision makers. So lots of things that prevent us from actually doing our jobs, which is all good stuff. We did some webinars recently, one on what to stop doing with your recruitment technology and the other one what to stop doing with your recruitment business. If you want to be sent links to those, because they're video in about half an hour each, so easily worth listening to in the car or whatever, please put the word series into your chat facility and we'll fire those off at you outside of this webinar. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So let's just have a quick chat about the history of the job advert because we need to figure out why we're where we are today and what we need to do about the future. So just after the dinosaurs were made extinct, we're not going to talk about the dates because there's still a lot of controversy about that, but the cave people came along, obviously with a load of Bic pens, managed to scratch out some job adverts onto their lovely caves. I found this one, I thought it was quite a funny one, so I just, we're going to try and keep this lighthearted today. But overall, job adverts have been around for a flipping long time. And then the Egyptians came along, obviously there's a bit of a gap there, and decided to start writing stuff down too. And you'll see, obviously this clearly is not a job advert. Please don't think I found something really unusual. I've been out to Egypt and carved this one up. But, just to give it a sense of purpose, really. And then the printing press comes out, and obviously then from 1500 onwards to around 2000, we are going flipping nuts with all sorts of interesting. And it's quite interesting when I was doing my research on the history of the job advert that some really old job adverts, like going back to the early 1800s, 1900s, that were in the printing press back then. It might be worth you going onto Google at some stage, ladies and gents, and having a bit of a giggle to yourself. I might even post some later on. But I certainly remember when I started out in recruitment in the early 2000s that Wednesdays and Thursdays were very, very exciting, because basically people were doing what we call the print run, and it was a bit like something from broadcast news where we got all of the colours set and the marketing and brand agency were waiting, and we were selling our adverts for £10,000 onwards in a lot of standards, and obviously making a ridiculous amount of money on the back of that. And then job boards come along, and interestingly enough, some of you actually said in your statements that you want to reduce your reliance on job boards, and all of my clients set me that as their goal when I start working with them on a marketing strategy. Lisa, help me save money on job boards next year. I even had a question the other day: how much money should I be allocating to my staff in terms of the job board budget that they've got? I tend to not share those stats online, but you know, it's something to think about. But the spray and pray approach to marketing and jobs was born, and then all of a sudden, because we're not selling as much adverts anymore because everything's gone online, we decide to start doing them for free, which means ultimately we've stopped spending time on adverts because we don't feel that there's a return on investment, because we're not seeing the direct correlation. I'm not making 10 or 20 grand anymore. So what we're doing is we're grabbing a spec from some junior HR person, thank you for the person who posted that earlier, and I'm putting that online. And here's an example of one that is not floating my boat. This was on LinkedIn yesterday. Steve, do you have any views on the history of the advert, or, you know, job boards and all that lovely stuff?
I think, obviously, you know, it's difficult because you're saying, obviously, the audience is saying, let's not use job boards, and we distribute adverts out onto job boards. But I would absolutely agree, to a certain degree, that people should stop advertising on some job boards, but they need to understand which ones don't work for them and stop working with those ones.
Yeah.
I think there's also an argument to be said that you could challenge them to say, well, in fact, you could and should be spending more, but with the right ones that deliver the best results. So it comes down to, you know, the slide you had before about the spray and pray. You know, I would completely agree with that. What's the point? You know, there's no value in that whatsoever. You're just going to build up frustration with recruiters by, you know, wasting all the budget and just bombarding them full of poor responses. But if you can identify the right channels that deliver the right people for the roles that you work on, then why would you not want to invest in those areas, whether it's online or on a traditional job board? You know, you shouldn't really mind where it comes from, as long as you can ultimately go on to place those people.
Agreed. It's all about using the right thing at the right time, and the silver bullet did never exist in the first place.
And there isn't one anymore. You know, if people are hoping for me to tell them what words to use and which job boards to use, there is no answer to that. You know, I wish there was, but there isn't. You know, it's also like, you know, what is the optimum time to post? There isn't one of those either. I think we have to almost get away from that sheep mentality and look at our own businesses and look at them very closely. And we need to understand, you know, where are we geographically based, what roles do we work on, what markets do we recruit in, and what is going to work for our business. And the company next door might do something very, very different, and therefore the boards they use and the approach they have should rightly be different as well.
Absolutely. So let's get to the money shot, as they say. Let's start talking about stuff. So because we're not charging for adverts anymore, we're probably not spending time. Because it feels like adverts are for free, we're spraying and praying and sticking them absolutely everywhere. And like Steve very rightly says, you know, you've got to think more tactically and strategically about your job adverts rather than just chucking them all online. And also what I say to my clients every day is, can you stop making your jobs look so easy? You know, you take a brief, a couple of days later, if we're lucky, the client might see an advert online. And then a few days after that, the client gets some CVs. And that's all they've seen is you do that. And then they say to me, and I have some internal corporate clients, and they say, well, you know, LinkedIn give me the same deal, if not better than the average recruitment consultant, so I'm going to give it a go for myself. And then I get this next point, recruiters saying to me, how do I stick to my clients more effectively? How do I demonstrate to my clients that I am actually doing a great job and that I don't need to reduce my fees and work on every job that they give me because I'm a professional? So let's stop advertising crap jobs, please, ladies and gentlemen, because you're just making your job look really, really easy to do. It's not good. So jobs have a job to do in this day and age. I'm not going to read all of these things out, but I do believe they're not just there to fill vacancies. I think what you should have is extra candidates to spec out at the end of the process. I do think they should put clients back in their boxes, as in leave me, trust me, I'm a doctor, I know what I'm doing with this, please stop talking to me about fees and start telling me when you want this person to start. I do think they should attract other recruiters, and I do think they should massively raise your profile. I think you should be raising your profile with jobs to people who are not looking right now, but who start to trust you because you really do look like you know what you're doing, yeah? When we see stuff online, it goes into our brains and eventually we're influenced. There's probably all sorts of scientific and psychological information about that. So
and
we're going to give...
I think the brand one on the last slide, I think that one's really important. I think there's a shift in the marketplace from candidates, and I don't want to get into the millennials, Gen X, Gen Y's conversations, but I think there's a real shift in the marketplace where people looking for jobs want to understand a lot more about the company that they're potentially going to be working for and applying to. And I think as an industry, we've always been very, very secretive, that we didn't want to give the game away as to who the client in question might be. And I get that completely. But if we can get into an environment where we've got a very tight relationship with our clients, we may have them on some sort of exclusive agreement, or we just have a relationship where they trust us, we know they're going to use us, then maybe, there's no give and to, but maybe we could afford to be a little bit more open about the company in question that we're recruiting for and who they are and what they do and what makes them so unique. So rather than just a bullet-pointed environment around skills, we could talk about what that company stands for and why somebody should want to be a part of that company.
Absolutely.
So I think brands should come through in the adverts far more than you must have X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's ask you whether or not you put your client names in, because that's a point that you've just pointed out actually, Steve. So good question. Let's...
Yeah, like I said, I absolutely get it. I didn't when I was a recruiter. I absolutely didn't. Everyone is fully aware that you would see a good advert, you would copy and paste it into Google, you would try and find out who that company was. So it's understandable why people wouldn't want to do that. But at the moment where the candidate is key and the jobs, potentially are relatively easy to find. Even if we don't have to disclose the name, maybe we could just disclose a little bit more about what the makeup of that organisation is, why people enjoy working there. Just try and give a little bit more of a window into the opportunity. Maybe that might help drive some engagement and some response.
So, talking of lack of information, we see far too many jobs online with what we consider to be for code breakers, i.e. there's not enough information for me to actually be converted from passive to active, let alone if I'm active, obviously unless they're for coders. So the Enigma approach to job adverts in my world has to stop. Now, I do say regularly in seminars and workshops, and we do run a really great adverts course for recruiters, all about innovating the adverts, innovating the job advert. And the first thing I say is, how many times do you not mention your client name, or do you keep the job secret? And we often get told, just like we're getting here, yeah, I'm really, really scared of actually mentioning my client's name. The challenge that you've got with that is if you're going out on the pool or you're going out for the evening this evening, any of those of you are single, and you walk into the room with a bag on your head, everything else you do has to compensate for people not being able to see your face. So as much as I agree that you need to put as much there about the client as possible, I do appreciate that in the current climate, with us working far too many jobs than we should, which is a statement in itself, that you should be looking at your job advert and saying, if I can't mention the client name, then what the bloody hell am I going to do to pitch this role effectively? Because if the client has got a bag on its head, its body language, its brand and everything is muted, then I've got to try really hard to super pitch this role. And actually, what I want you to be thinking about throughout this webinar is, why aren't you flipping this advice into candidate profiles as well, where you send out anonymized but branded CVs to clients, where you have to remove their critical data so that the client can't find out who they are, but you are still going to pitch that candidate effectively. And why don't you have a think about some of the advice we're going to give you today and see if you can flip that into candidate profiling well, because it is kind of the same thing. But just bear in mind that things like fancy job titles and jargon, as well as a lack of client brand, can have a massive impact. So don't get me wrong, I get why you're keeping your client data secret, but actually what you're doing is you're reducing the chance of actually getting the job placed in the first place. I do suggest that you split test your jobs. I do suggest that you have one job advertised with as much information in it as possible, including client data, and one without all of that data because you're a bit worried. And let's just start to see over time which is more successful. And then, for God's sake, start managing your client relationships harder and making it very clear to the client that you are you respect the process, and go back to maybe the way it used to be, where you're working less jobs but you were doing a better job of it. People have put off applying for jobs where they don't understand where they are, or they don't apply full stop. So the 73% of you that omit to put client data in your job adverts, 64% of people who look at them won't apply. So you've got to ask yourself, who are the other 36%? So look at all this lovely jargon that our fantastic trainer Rose has found online. These are real jobs, but obviously the pink is what they should be. Sanitation engineer, media distribution officer, brand champion, talent delivery. The people you're trying to pitch to, ladies and gentlemen, think it's all a load of crap. If they don't understand it, they're not going to do anything with it. And that's kind of like a bit of a reverse spam. Go on, Steve.
I was just going to say, and also you've got to be considerate towards the job seeker, because it's highly unlikely that somebody sitting at home on Reed or TJ or Monster or whoever is going to look for a role that says media distribution officer. So we have to get into the mindset of the job seeker as well, because if we are going to invest time into writing better quality adverts, we don't want to overcomplicate it so that people can't find it when they're trying to search for those on the job boards or wherever they're looking for them.
Absolutely. Okay. So keeping your job top secret is akin to basically saying the only people who I want to apply for this job are people who don't give a damn. And then I get recruiters saying to me all the time, the one thing I want to stop in 2017 is the wrong people applying for my jobs. So somebody used the word hyperbole earlier. It might feel like that, but I work with recruiters every day. And one thing I want to stop in 2017 is recruiters shooting themselves in the foot constantly. So think as well about benefits. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen, would you apply for a job that had the word benefits, go to the interview, and not actually know what the benefits were? Wouldn't you kind of want to know about that? What's wrong with saying not just excellent benefits, but let's give some examples of what those benefits are? And there's no excuse for this. You need to find that out. And if you don't know the answers, you're not having the best kind of conversations with your clients when you're taking the job brief. And if the client is not prepared to give you that data, I'm not convinced they need to be one of your vacancies that you're running. And a lot of you said you want to stop working so many vacancies. So maybe the ones you need to cull or bin are the ones that don't give you the respect you deserve and give you the data that you need. And let's stop using a USP that will advertise anything, anywhere, at any time. You'll advertise the best jobs to the best candidates for the best clients, surely. And competitive salary, that's a very subjective process to go through there. We all have different levels. I'd be quite happy to earn £1 million. Some people would not be happy with that at all. Can you tell me, please, ladies and gentlemen, whether or not anyone actually proofreads your job adverts before they go live? Lovely. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's gone up slightly, because certainly when we did this poll last year, we certainly found that it was around a 50-50 mark. So it's good that obviously people are moving forward and starting to get them proofread, but you've got to ask yourself, who is proofreading your job adverts? Because we're not... Go on.
We have that facility in our system. So we have a little configuration called add approve, which basically means that anybody can write an advert, but before it goes live, it has to go to someone else, ideally a team leader or whoever it might all be, for their validation before it actually goes out onto the job boards. And interestingly, over the last 12 months, we've had more and more and more requests for that feature to be turned on. So it's interesting to see that backed up in the statistics there.
Absolutely. Right, thanks everyone. Okay, so over to Steve for the next part.
So I know you love Christmas, I know you love a party, so if we're talking about things to stop, I had a look at some of the stats that went through the system, and I just think we should just stop and think about what we're doing before we do it. And I think we work in an incredibly fast-paced industry as recruiters. There's always this inherent need and desire to get more jobs out, to get more candidates in. I get that we work in a highly pressurized, highly targeted environment, and also, the vast majority of us will be commissioned on a monthly basis. So, we're working, very, very quickly and over a short period of time. But I had looked through the system, and last year, on Christmas Day, we sent 4,002 adverts live on Christmas Day, and I don't know how many of those adverts would have been looked at. And then I had a look at New Year's Eve, and 15,000 odd went live on New Year's Eve. So there would be an argument to say that was a complete waste of time, and if you take all of those adverts at even £5 an advert, that's a huge amount of money that people have wasted. But if we go full circle, back to what I said at the beginning about we've got to understand our own marketplaces, then I appreciate that not everybody celebrates Christmas and not everybody is fortunate enough to get Christmas or get New Year's Eve off. And if you are one of those unfortunate ones working New Year's Eve, then you've come off of a hard shift or a hard day. It may well be a good time. That said, I think just generically looking at those figures, they're so much higher than I ever thought they were going to be. It just amazed me. And I just think, if we've got our system set up where we're just automating adverts to go out, or we're just sort of resending them or refreshing them, I just think we sort of owe it to ourselves to think, am I realistically going to get anything in return for this? And what is the financial implication to the business and to the people I work for by sticking out 4,000 adverts on Christmas Day? So if it works for you because it's a marketplace you operate in, brilliant, go for it. I just think the numbers are just too high to justify that. So just stop, think about some of the times when your adverts are going out for sure.
Good stuff. Talk to us about Breaking Bad, Steve.
It's difficult to sort of even put a statistic about it because it's a constant. Now we've put into the system a spell check facility. We've even moved to having a forced spell check, which is probably one of our most sought after features, i.e. where the administrator of the account can actually lock that on, so every advert has to go through a spell check facility before it can even go live. And spelling mistakes will always creep through. Some of the systems aren't necessarily clever enough to pick them all up. But it's, I had a look this morning and I found 36 jobs on one job board for sales managers or sales managers, however you want to put it. 36 jobs, and the two most recent adverts that had gone out had salaries of in excess of 60k. And it's just astounding. If I was a candidate, maybe I would apply. I have to say maybe I would apply, but it doesn't really give me a great feeling for the recruiter in question if they haven't really taken the time to even get the basics right. Does that form the basis of a good relationship moving forwards on a 60k level job if they can't even get the job title right? So we don't see it as much as we used to because we've got a system that sort of tries to help with it. It sort of goes as far now as to touch upon warning words. So we can highlight words that clients don't want going out from their adverts. We can even ban adverts if they contain certain words. But if you're posting your adverts directly, you've got to sanity check them. You've got to proofread them because it's just unbelievable how many adverts go out there. I saw some frightening statistic that there was in the US on LinkedIn something ridiculous like over 2,000 sales manager jobs being advertised recently. So it's huge. It's not just us, and it's not just in the minority. We do it all the time. I think it's just because we're rushing.
Okay.
Fortunately, I did run the search. I've got to be honest. I didn't find any pubic managers. Thankfully, I don't know if I can put that all down to the system or just your warped sense of putting a PowerPoint together, but I didn't find any.
No, there's a few pubic managers. There's a few pubic relations managers on LinkedIn, which will be another drop-down box, no doubt, for a category. Talk to us about the length of copy and length of job titles.
Yeah, so I wanted to try and give some little takeaways. I'm keen to caveat that with, this isn't going to be right for every single business in every single market, but just looking at some of the research out there, looking at some of the stats that go through the system, there seems to be a very, very specific correlation between the job title length and subsequent application rates, and the same with the overall job description. So, I just tried to throw that up there, and I think we've got a little bit more detail in one of the other slides. But in essence, if you can try and make your job titles sit between 50 to 60 characters, the research shows that they will get 40% more click-throughs than job titles that are shorter or longer. Okay, so there's no point going for the really short, sharp one or the sort of overly in-depth one. But yeah, if you can try and get it between 50 to 60 characters, the stats absolutely back that up. You should get 40% more uptake in terms of the clicks that you'll get on those adverts. What it seems to come down to, and as everything, it's mildly subjective, but they're very clear, very descriptive title content. It seems to have a material influence on a candidate's decision to apply. It sort of creates that illusion that, okay, I know exactly what's going on here. I understand it, I get it, there's no ambiguity, and I think I'm right for it, I'm going to go for it. And if you try and over-engineer it, then it just leaves people mildly confused, and it has a sort of a subtle effect and causes that uncertainty. And if they're uncertain, they don't necessarily do it. So I would absolutely look to hit that 50 to 60 character limit on the job title for sure. Then when you look at job descriptions, there's an optimum rate there. You've got to be trying to hit it between 4,000 and 5,000 characters. That seems to be the sweet spot for adverts. Okay, so your job descriptions that sit between 2,000 and 10,000 characters, they get more than the really short, sharp ones like the LinkedIn one you popped up earlier. But the sweet spot, 4,000 to 5,000, it's going to spike at 15% click-through to application compared to some of the other adverts. And then maybe for people, this might be more on the sort of the branded adverts or the corporate adverts or maybe where you redirect to a sort of a lengthy application form. If anybody's doing that, then that's one of the biggest things we see, and the statistics that sit around drop-off rate are just terrifying, honestly. I've got one client with a 16-page application form, genuinely, and they're surprised why they have a drop-off rate of close to 96%. And if anybody can get through that, they should just give them the job. Even if they get to the end, just give them the job. They deserve it. So if you are going to redirect to a career site where you do want people to fill in an application form, do it yourself, first and foremost. Be the candidate, go through the process. If you enjoyed it, I doubt it, but if you enjoyed it and you could do it in under 5 minutes, then you're off to a very, very good start. And the stats, you'll get a 300% increase if you can keep it sub 5 minutes in terms of that application workflow. But to that point, I would encourage people to do that also. When you've written an advert, how often, as recruiters, do you actually go on to the relevant job board and actually look at how your advert appears? I think it's a really interesting thing to do, because what most people don't realize is that in a typical job board environment, or even in even on LinkedIn, for example, you only get probably the first 2.5 lines of the advert in the snippet before you see the famous words of click here for more details. So if you've not got enough in those first 2-3 lines, then maybe somebody won't even read those adverts. So I just think it's a really good sort of sanity check, just to go onto a job board, look at your own adverts, and just see how much you've got to play with, just to see what how quickly you've got to get somebody's attention before you get into the meat of the advert.
We've actually got a poll on this that we were going to run in a few minutes' time, but I'm chucking it up now while you've got everyone in the mood and you're obviously warming them up for us. So just grab your mice, everyone.
Exactly.
You actually have replied.
It's if I've seen the slides, isn't it?
It might have been that. Yeah. Okay, so basically you're not applying for your own jobs. You're not seeing how easy or how difficult it is. And bless your marketeers in the room who are constantly working with me and asking for budgets to make the candidate experience more effective. Often what needs to happen is the recruiter experience needs to be demonstrated first, i.e. the recruiters and the recruitment leaders go onto their own websites, go onto LinkedIn, apply via mobile, apply via desktop, see what happens, and then obviously that's when the money appears to make the changes. Please consider that. And also, please tell me gone are the days where making a job difficult to apply for was the goal, because that's the only way we could figure out how to get quality applications. And trust me, that's all I hear is we don't want to make it any easier. We don't want to use apply via LinkedIn or apply via Indeed, because then we get all the crap through. No, you get crap through because you've written crap adverts. It's reverse spamming. You've basically said only the crap people need apply because of the way that we structured the advert and the way that we've hardly put any information in. We're attracting people who don't give a damn, whereas what we want to do is write fantastic, engaging copy that's actually going to get the right people attracted to the role, but also people to deselect themselves because it's just not the right kind of culture. So let's just carry on with what Steve was talking about before in terms of the size matters piece, because there's a lot of really useful stats there, and obviously we're going to be putting these slides up onto Twitter and stuff anyway, but I know that there's also a couple of apps that can really help recruiters fix some of the really stupid, and they are really stupid, issues with how they structure their adverts. So there's a fantastic little app, it's free of charge, called Grammarly, and basically you install that onto your machine, and no matter what device, no matter what system you're using, whether it be your CRM, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, it checks it for you, and trust me, I use it. But you've also got a system called titles capitalization as well. And what titles capitalization does, it's a little bit of kit, basically just a website where you'll pop in the job title and or the heading of your job or whatever it's going to be, and what that will do is basically put it into the right case sensitivity, because obviously a lot of the time we don't know whether or not the word and or to or be needs to capital letters, or if it's sales manager with a big S and a small m, but the titles capitalization system is really, really cool, and we'll be sending those out as part of the mailer beyond this as well. Thanks very much for that, Steve. Right, tell me how long you actually spend writing your job adverts. Now, often what we're finding in the recruitment community is they're repurposing old adverts, they're repurposing old proposals, they're repurposing old emails. But what we're not seeing is enough time and effort being made on particular types of adverts. So please just consider that the time you spend, obviously, you know, for the sake of repeating myself, between 5 and 10 minutes is nowhere near enough time to do this. And also, I would say the time that you post it. Now, Steve's going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, but whenever we've polled clients, we often find they're not posting their adverts within 24 hours of actually receiving the brief. And trust me, your clients are going to be looking online for your adverts to make sure you're actually doing what you said you're going to be doing. So that's just something for you to consider. Now, again, making adverts look dull seems to be the goal of most recruitment businesses right now, and what I suggest to you is that obviously we're potentially either talking to the wrong people in the business, and some of you have admitted that that's happening already. We're relying on the wrong data set. So we're getting an HR spec through, and maybe some of the younger recruiters out there are a bit worried about changing it. Maybe they don't know their niche enough. Maybe they don't have the kind of relationship with a client where they can admit they don't know everything they need to know. None of the above is acceptable. You've got to start pitching that role. And I always say to my clients, grab that advert that's online right now and read it out. And we actually got someone to do that recently, and halfway through they were going, yeah, even I'm bored. Just bear in mind, please, most of us, I would say a good 90 to 99% of us, pretty much love what we do. We might not love it every single second of the day, but we get out of bed in the morning, we get on the train and we drive in, and we leave home at the end of the day. We've not tried to kill anybody. So therefore, we're not just doing it for the money. We might be doing it because people sat next to are good, or it's just good life chances. It might not be the best job in the world, but it's a good job. And I want you to consider that as recruiters, your job is to pitch that role. Now, often recruiters are compared to estate agents. If I'm really honest, I wouldn't even give them that credit sometimes, because at least estate agents know how to pitch a house. They'll make, I don't know, a really crappy house, and they'll give it all the right passion words to get people thinking about it. And I just think recruiters don't do enough of that. So get some passion out there. Think about using even thesauruses just to think about getting some clarity in your roles, trying to tell people why they should get out of bed in the morning. And again, I always say to the recruiters that we're working with, if you were talking to someone face-to-face about the role, you'd aim the role at them, not at the client and not at yourself. You'd start talking about them before you even start talking about a role. There'd be lots of the words I, this is my job, this is my client thinks this. I work with candidates who would love to go for this job. You're really pitching it. Most recruiters I know are extremely eloquent, articulate verbally, and then for some reason they go online and they're either deadly silent or they mess it up. You've just got to be yourself to a degree. God forbid all the marketeers are putting their heads in their hands right now and getting out the social media policies. But when it comes to your job adverts, just imagine how you would be like in front of a client, how you'd pitch it back to the client if they said to you, okay, so here's the job spec, pitch it at me. What would you do? And why is it you don't do this online? And ultimately, one of the things that's... Go on, Steve.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I just don't, you know, we have to be candid and say an HR spec is not an advert. Full stop. It just isn't. And I think I see so many that have just been cut and paste and put out there, maybe tweaked a little bit, but in no way, shape or form is an HR spec ever going to be suitable for an advert. And, you know, it goes back to what you were saying a moment ago, but maybe the recruiters are uncomfortable having those types of conversations, and I guess it's a training course in its own right. But you've got to realise that if you just rely on the HR spec, you're almost doing your client a disservice, because the spec's going to come from a department, unless it's an HR role, that's very different to the role itself. So you need to fight hard to, you know, work with HR to take the HR spec and find a way where you can actually speak to the person that is going to be, you know, this person would report to. That's the only person who's truly going to be able to tell you what they are looking for and what they are willing to take on. And as I said, I know it's not easy, and you know, maybe you can run a course on that for everybody that's listening. But from my point of view, we have HR specs given to us that we're asked to use. I don't use a single one of them because I don't believe it's going to help me to find the right people. And so I would actively, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but I would actively speak to a recruiter and tell them from the heart what I'm looking for, what's going to work for me, because I'm genuinely, if I'm going to make this decision, I'm the only one who knows. So we need to find a way to get through to that decision maker, that hiring manager, and say, look, I've got the spec and that's great, but what are you going to say yes to?
Absolutely. And let's not forget, a lot of HR specs are built around compliance, Steve, as well. So they're there to kind of cover the legal implications of the role, as opposed to how fabulous it might be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying not work with it. I'm not saying don't work with it. Dismiss HR. That's completely the opposite of what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, let's speak to HR and say, I've got the spec and that's brilliant. But if there's any gaps in that spec that I think I need to understand to help me do a great job for you guys, would you object to me speaking to the person that's ultimately going to make the decision? And you'd like to think if you have a good relationship with your client, they're not going to be against that.
Absolutely.
I know it's difficult, but I think we have to fight for that. Otherwise, we're just making it difficult. We're doing a disservice to the client and a disservice to the candidates because they're not going to apply to an HR spec.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're very unlikely to place people in that organisation anyway because they're probably working with another 20 recruiters. Okay, so all good stuff. So we've obviously asked the question already because Steve prompted that, which is fantastic. Steve's got some information about the best times to post. I'm sure actually Steve's got the time to post, haven't you, Steve?
There isn't one. Sorry, there isn't the time. And we could detail all of this, but I'm mindful of time on our webinar here. But there isn't a best time to post. And what we do see is a very common trait, and you'll see this as well, is that you get to Friday afternoon and there's a flurry of activity. All the recruiters out there are knackered, but the boss is watching, so we're trying to keep busy. So we do loads of admin, we write loads of jobs, and we stick them out on a Friday afternoon. And that's openly discussed all of the time. Then what's more openly discussed is, well, we all know that the optimum time is on a Tuesday between 11 and 2 o'clock. And again, that's a complete fallacy as well, because it goes back to the start of the webinar where I sort of raised the point that different companies work in different ways and different markets operate in different ways. And I think you as an individual company need to look at what works best for you. So rather than putting up every sector that we work across, just to put it into context, you get more applications to nurse roles in the middle of the night than you do on Tuesday between 11 and 2. Okay? And maybe there's some logic to that. These people have a tough job, and I respect what they do entirely. But if they've had a tough shift and they're sitting there in the middle of the night missing their family, and they're flicking around on their smartphone, it's not that surprising that they might look for something that's more appealing to them. So we've got to get into the mindset of the people that we're working with and not just treat them all the same. So I can tell you for a fact that we see more applications to nurse roles posted after 2 o'clock in the morning that we do at any other time in the week.
There's something as well, because when we're working with marketeers and we're often asking them to think, because let's not forget, adverts are the most important copy that a recruiter will ever create or share. And obviously copy equals content, content equals theoretically bleeding over your keyboard in order to get the right thing. But actually what it means is, like you say, sharing at the right times. And all my clients say to me, Lisa, when is the best time to post? And you've already said there is no best time that anyone can publish, but just give some sort of takeaways to people. The advice that I give is this: look at your website and look at when it's being hit the most. Obviously. Look at when, but not just your website, but look at your jobs pages and seeing when they're being hit the most. Look at your LinkedIn impressions and on your company page and seeing when you're being hit there. And you can do the same on things like Facebook and Twitter as well. But here's the rub. You're only looking at your own data. And I've yet to meet a recruiter who only wants the people on his existing LinkedIn profile to apply to him or her. I'm sure he wants his competitors' data. So pens and papers, everybody. There is a system called follow a wonk. Now, follow a wonk, if you say it too many times on a Friday night after a gin and tonic, you might get slapped around the face. But just consider that there is a button within that will tell you what your competitors' best times to post are from a Twitter perspective. Now, here's something to consider. I do not subscribe to the rule that I'm on my phone, and if a tweet comes through and I'm not in the mood for Twitter, I swipe it and say, no, I'm not interested. I action it. We've all got these phones now which are bleating on at us all day long. Do me, do this, do this, do this, update this, swipe this, change this. So we might be in the middle of something, but if an update happens, we're on it because we just can't segment our lives anymore. Everything's just a mess. Great mess, we're all in control. But just think about this, the average person on Facebook in their onesie at 8 o'clock at night, if their Twitter symbol at the top pops up or LinkedIn pops up or an email pops up, their natural reaction is to go see. So ideally what we want to do is find out when our competitors' communities are most active, and Follow a Wonk will tell us that, in order that we can attract at those times as well as the times that our own community is online. And that to me is probably the one of the only systems out there for free that you can use that will give you that data. Have you got any other comments about that, Steve?
No, I think that's absolutely right. I just want to go back to the point you made a minute ago where you said you should tell your clients you're going to get their adverts out within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
Because what we could do is we could potentially consult with them and try and put forward a more intelligent argument. Because if we do see them on a Thursday afternoon, then by that definition we're going to stick it out Friday, and that is categorically the worst time. No one looks for adverts on a Friday because they've had a tough week at work and all they want to do is get down the pub and, as you said, have a gin and tonic. You know, Saturday hopefully they're hungover or going out and enjoying themselves. Sunday they're gearing themselves back up for work. You know, Monday they get back into the office and realise they hate their job, and we go full circles. So maybe what we could do is do all of the analysis that we've just spoken about, but then say to the client, look, you know, we genuinely feel that the most optimal time for us to get responses is likely to be on X, Y, and Z. So we won't see the advert go out straight away, but you certainly will see it go out. But for our industry, for our marketplace, you know, we're going to put this one out in 3 days' time. We're going to stick it out late in the afternoon because not many people are looking at jobs whilst they're at work. They're doing it on the train, on their smartphone. So don't panic if you don't see it. We believe this is the best time to get the best response. So, yeah, I don't think there is a right time. I'm pretty confident there isn't a right time. You have to do the work, you have to do the analysis, and you have to sort of understand what works best for you. But then use that as a USP when you speak with your clients, because I doubt a client's ever heard anybody say that to them.
No, absolutely, and I think the consulting piece is a good point. Talk to us about the fixed versus growth piece that you popped into this slide deck.
So this isn't necessarily a stop, so apologies for that. It's just something I'm genuinely fascinated in. And if you notice the striking resemblance, you're on the left and Wayne's on the right. So
lovely.
Well, I got it the right way around. So there's a lot of research into the language used in adverts around fixed.
Steve, we've lost you. Can you hear us okay? Ladies and gentlemen, could you tell me whether or not you can hear myself or Steve? Because I've lost him, but obviously I'm wondering if it's a me problem or a him problem. I'm just getting yes and no's. That's not helping me. So you can't hear Steve, but you can hear me. That's fine. So we've lost Steve. So Rhiannon, if you can hear me, can you get in touch with Steve? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on with the webinar and we'll bring him back in when obviously whatever happens at his end comes back online. Thank you very much, everyone. Right, I want to find out whether or not you think advert writing is actually what you would consider to be admin. Can you give me your answers in less than 10 seconds? This is a yes or no, it's not complicated. Grab your mice and tell me, please. Fantastic, thank you very much. It's almost 50-50, not quite. God, polls, don't we hate them at the moment? They're always bloody wrong, aren't they? But interestingly enough, not enough of you are seeing this as a sales process, and I'm vehemently in the path that says they are a sales process, they're a consulting process, just like Steve very eloquently put earlier. And if you actually then pass them on to admin, what you're saying to the client is, this is not important to me. You still should be pitching the role. Would you really say to a candidate, I don't want to pitch the role to you, but I'll hand it over to admin? Or actually, yeah, me pitching the role at you is not an important use of my time. It's the most important use of your time. It's the reason why we exist. So again, without sort of setting up all sorts of lecture alarm bells going off. So obviously, one of the things we want you to stop doing in 2017 is to stop seeing adverts as admin. And what I want you to do is I want you to reposition yourself right at the heart of what recruitment really is. Recruitment is not advertising, and God forbid it's actually seen like that by some of our clients. They see you advertise, they see you place, they see that as recruitment. And we know recruitment is a lot deeper than that. It's a lot more 360 than that. So what I want you to start doing is writing adverts that get your clients to go, do you know what, this guy really knows what he's doing. She really appears to know her niche really well. She's actually marketed this job in a way that I could have only dreamed. And obviously we're looking at things like imagery, and we're looking at getting the right passion statements in, and obviously if you attend our fantastic course, we'll show you millions more tips. It sounds like Steve's back in the room. Don't worry, Steve will get you back into your versus growth in a second. But obviously we want you to demonstrate that adverts are critical and worth money. And if I'm honest, I'm working with some clients right now to try and get adverts as a billable, saleable entity again. Because why have they become free? Because we made that decision, our clients didn't. We said we can advertise them for free, we're not going to spend very much time on them, we've got access to all of this stuff, we'll just absorb the cost. Well, digital marketing is a skill, and we've started saying it's not a skill, we'll just do it for nothing. So I want you to demonstrate it's important. I want you to talk to them about how they would sell the role, and obviously if they can't, and actually you should be doing a better job of that anyway. I obviously say advertise within 24 hours, but actually I'm going to change this slide because Steve has totally put me in my place, which by the way happens more often than you'd think. And obviously just think about this role. Get on with your job. Your job is to recruit and obviously to attract the right people to the right jobs. Now, going back to the point that Steve was making earlier about fixed versus growth before he was rudely interrupted by the tech. Off you go, Steve.
Yes, I'm back. So you're on the left, Wayne's on the right. Would you ever write an advert that use those words? Would you use rockstar? Would you use the word genius? So it just comes back to fixed and growth, and just how certainly some key words have a really, really big impact and very detrimental impact on the performance on the advert. So utilising the word rockstar actually has a really negative impact on the advert, I guess, unless you're recruiting for a rockstar or band manager. But you see it in sales roles. I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. People trying to differentiate them and use these words. But it does actually have a material impact on how well that advert performs, or more to the point, doesn't. Interestingly, between the two, utilising the word genius means that that advert will probably take 11 times longer to fill. It's 11 times slower process to fill an advert that utilises the word genius. So what we've got to do is we've got to get into a world where and it is a different subject matter, but we look at that fixed and we look at that growth mindset. And I would encourage everybody to write about learning and not necessarily write about brilliance. Okay? So, the job adverts that use a growth mindset simply perform much, 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 much better than those that use the fixed mindset. Okay? So talk about things like learning, talk about things like developing. Please shy away from using words like brilliance. Other words that have a significant impact that you would see on a very regular basis. Best or brightest, top talent. We're looking for top talent. They perform significantly worse than adverts that have a growth approach to them. So loves new challenges, wants to learn. All of that type of phraseology has a significant impact on the positive performance of the advert. It really, really does. So, yeah, I would encourage people to have a look at that. And I think one of the things that actually contributes towards that, if you use a growth mindset in the language of the adverts, you're likely to reach a slightly broader market. And obviously there's a balance between having a broader market and a load of junk, as you said. But if you can reach a slightly broader market, then you simply may have more options to choose from. Okay? So things, I know people like takeaways, so things that will impact your advert negatively will be words and phrases such as top performer, super smart, best and brightest, and an interesting one, highly intelligent. Now the really interesting thing with that last one is that adverts with the word intelligent perform better than those that have highly intelligent connected. So there's a real subtle nuance from a candidate's perspective as to what's going to be required of them, and that directly relates into the application rates and what we see going through the system and some of the other research that I've been looking at. You flip that, you look at the ones that have a really positive impact on the other side, highly motivated, really good points for that, loves to learn, strives to achieve, open to new challenges. You see a really, really positive uptick in terms of applications and success for adverts that use that type of approach to their language.
I'm feeling an infographic coming on.
So I know it's not necessarily a stop or a start, and it's something we could probably debate for another hour. It's just something that I'm fascinated by, and when you look at the actual stats, it's pretty significant. And the route I don't really want to get involved in today is that some of the growth language is very, very prominent with female applications over male applications as well.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for that, Steve. So let's just think about how our clients perceive your job adverts. They obviously perceive them as a cost to them, so you need to obviously put them in their place and generate some respect for that. And obviously what we want to do is we want to write adverts to attract clients as well as candidates. We obviously want to attract those passive candidates because actually they're the ones that protect our pipeline. All of my recruiters say to me, Lisa, I don't want to attract these people that apply for everything because even if they accept, I don't even know if they're going to show up. So, and Steve's put a stat here of 58% because apparently if you get back to people, they're 58% more likely to buy from you. Is that right?
No, so candidates are less likely to buy from that company or less likely to use that company if they don't get any response from an application. So, I guess, we're all guilty of it. I did it when I was a recruiter, so I can't say that I didn't. We're very busy, we're getting inundated with responses, and we're not very good at getting back to people. What we need to remember is that most people who apply to an advert are not right for that advert. I know that sounds bizarre, but it's the truth. We get 100 responses, we might have 2 or 3 that are worth speaking with. Doesn't necessarily mean that those people aren't suitable for a similar role tomorrow, next week or next month, or more likely a colleague in my business who may do IT if I do finance. But if we've not had the decency or courtesy to go back to them to let them know anything, then they're more reluctant to work with us moving forwards because of that bad experience. So I don't want to get bogged down into the sort of candidate experience side of things, but I think it is important that we have a sort of a duty. We want to position ourselves better in the marketplace to get back to people. And I really don't think there's anything wrong with going back to somebody to say, I'm really sorry, I cannot help you.
Absolutely.
I wish you every success in your search. And who knows, that may even save you time from having to avoid their calls and all the emails that they're going to send in to you saying, where's my application up to? So yeah, it's a big stat that we should pay attention to.
Let's get our adverts pimped as well, because 61% of AppsCo members this year said that next year they're terrified about how they're going to attract their own staff. So there's obviously one thing to do, which is to, and take away from this please ladies and gents, sort your adverts out for your own team, but also just sort them out generally, because recruiters are looking at your job adverts every day to try and nick them, and obviously I can't do anything about that, but if they consistently see you being flipping awesome at what you do, there's only one place left for them to go, and that's to come and work with you. So, and I speak to recruitment leaders every day who are sick of using Rec2Recs, rightly or wrongly, I'm not going to state my comment on that, and want to attract recruiters more effectively, because actually you recruit the right recruiters and everything else just clicks into place. So think about those 3 key things. Sorry.
Of that, you put it up there. I was going to say we started to see that trend already. Obviously we track the salaries that go through the system, and yeah, salaries for the recruitment industry, don't want to upset anybody if it doesn't relate to them, but yeah, we've seen a shift. 11% increase in terms of advertised salaries this year compared to last year. So as I said, we see these trends, 3 months, at least 3 months ahead of what people would probably feel at desk level. So hopefully that's a good thing for the recruiters on the phone here, if they're still listening in. But yeah, salaries are changing, they're going up because people are fighting for good talent out there, and as we know, money talks, certainly in this industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lovely stuff. Now, there's a slide here which probably, we'll leave that. Maybe pick 2 or 3 from this, Steve. What do you think are the most key?
I like 5. It comes back to everything we spoke about. Don't have that blanket statement of let's just not use job boards anymore because everybody's trying to save money. If a job board does a good job for you, spend more money with it. Why wouldn't you? But, do the research first. Track your responses, track your placements, do the basics, which I'm sure you do. But then use that information to shape the business and invest accordingly. I think it's absolutely wrong to say, don't use the job boards or don't use the LinkedIn. If it does a good job for you, use it more. So I think 5's a really, really important thing. I think number 9, prioritising getting the job filled over getting the job filled with the very best applicant. That's always an interesting one. I think we've got to be very, very careful there. And I think, we put it on here, I think, oh yeah, number 3, because I think it comes back to the HR comment and the HR spec that we spoke about, and it comes back to trying to basically use the advert to screen out candidates. We shouldn't be trying to do it that way. We should be trying to write the content to engage more people and get people to apply as opposed to stop people to applying. So yeah, have a read through, but I think for me those ones resonate as a recruiter.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Okay, so what are you guys and gals going to take back today? We've slightly overrun, but I'm hoping that's because the content was great. Give us some feedback in your questions box. What are you going to do differently today? What kinds of things have you jotted down if you've written notes? Give us some feedback on that. So we've got people checking out their website to make sure they're posting at the right time. Some people are going to start using follower wonk as well. That can be your new mantra. Change some of the typical sales words like superstars, looking at the size of their posts, which is good. Review when we're posting. Fixed versus growth. Someone loved that, Steve. So there you go. You got a fan there. Optimize their
You
keywords.
can do the webinar. You can do the next webinar on fixed versus growth. As I said, there's a whole hour, if not a whole afternoon, on that subject matter.
Yeah.
You know, it's fascinating, and it has an impact. There's lots of things we talk about that are interesting, but maybe they translate to a difference.
Yeah.
Honestly, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. We've got proofreading, trying to apply for their own jobs online, see what they look like in terms of size and everything, looking at the adverts process, absolutely. Spend more time on creating a pitch rather than an advert. That is the absolute key thing for this, Jim. Definitely. Get our recruiters to apply to their own jobs and monitor the responses on all job adverts we use, or job boards we use. Absolutely. You know, things like Broadbean, etc., aren't just there to spam the internet with loads of jobs and to see whether or not you're getting value from your job boards. They're actually there to help you to create some intelligence around how you advertise, as opposed to just advertising. Character length statistics, etc. And someone's asked for all the detrimental words, Steve, so I'm probably going to quiz you outside of this webinar, and I think us creating an infographic over the next few weeks would be really, really good. So if you've got that written down anyway, get that across to me. Right, everybody, thank you very much for your time today, and you've spent a lot of it on us, and we hope you've got some return on investment from that. If you want to know more about our innovative job adverts course, which goes in a lot deeper to the stuff we've done today, just put the word workshop into your chat facility, and we'll send you details on the course that we've run. Also, don't forget we have a blog, as does Broadbean, and it's a very good one too. If you subscribe to our blog and our YouTube, you'll get all of this straight to your inbox. And by the way, we don't spam. We probably do one thing a week, but it's always great. So make sure you please subscribe. If you're not sure how to subscribe, put the word subscribe into your chat facility, and we'll send you links to make your life easy, because we know your life is difficult because you're recruiters or marketers or recruitment leaders. Thank you very much, everyone. And Steve, thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to come on and just share some thoughts. I hope they've been of use. Difficult to cover it all in a short space of time. So, as you said, if anyone's got any questions, let us know. I don't think there's a single magic answer to all of it, but hopefully there's some insight there. And just as somebody asked, probably not top three, but one of the sort of three key phrases from the sort of the growth side of things. Learn new things works well. Commitment to improve works well. Highly determined. Really strong phrases for performing adverts. Stay away from high performer and certainly overachiever. They'll knock your adverts. So we'll do that one another time.
I think we will. Absolutely. Rhiannon, write that down, Miss Moneypenny. Right, everybody, we're going off air. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy Black Friday or not, and enjoy your weekends. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.